Hey everybody, it's Tech Sergeant T. Just out here enjoying an early spring, it looks like. You can see the trees are in blossom behind me, yet it's only mid-March, so that's pretty good. I was contemplating my first assignment in the Air Force. I mentioned the other day it was in Pakistan. Of course, at that time it was called West Pakistan. Little history. Pakistan's east and west were established when India got its independence in 1947 from England, and the Muslims went to the Pakistans and the Hindus stayed in India. And I guess it was about 1971, East Pakistan felt like it was not getting the same recognition and same economic help as West Pakistan. So they had a little disagreement. I don't know really how severe it got, but the result was Bangladesh was established, and West Pakistan became Pakistan. So I remember taking that first trip. It was on a military transport. MATS was called, Military Air Transport System. It was a C-135, which is equivalent to a Boeing 707. And we flew out of Charleston, North Carolina. Military aircraft are a little bit different than civilian aircraft. For one thing, there's no windows. There's a small window in the door, and that's about it. But you also fly backwards. And so if you have an accident, you're thrown into your seat, not out of it. So it's supposed to be safer. And they have had military aircraft crash, passenger aircraft, and have survivors. So it sounds pretty sound. Commercial aircraft have tried it, but it was too expensive to try and build them that way with that kind of reinforcement in the seats. Well, we took off from Charleston. Of course, we part way to our first destination. We got what was that was considered the in-flight meal. It was basically a box lunch. You know, there's a sandwich and a bag of chips and an apple or an orange, usually apples, and drink, cartons of milk, little cartons of milk. And so it was pretty good. We ended up landing in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia at about 6 in the morning. Of course, it was already almost 100 degrees. And Saudi Arabia is different than a lot of places. Military bases in a lot of countries are considered to be sovereign U.S. territory. Not so in Saudi Arabia. So the cultural requirements applied on the base as much as off. So there was no drinking, no alcohol in the whole country, which made it being stationed there a little more difficult. Saudi Arabia is one of those places that it's so flat. I used to joke that if you go AWOL, they don't even come looking for you for 4 days because they can see you that long. There's nothing there. Well, after a couple of hours, so I've had my first, just realized, had my first foreign Coke. Believe it or not, Coca-Cola is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. What they did was they would punch a hole through the lid rather than taking the lid off and put a straw down through it. And it was mostly foam. It was hard to drink. I don't even know if it was, safe to drink, but yeah, we drank it. After a couple of hours, after refueling, we got it back on board and flew on to Karachi, Pakistan. And what a shock to the system that was. I can't believe it. I mean, you're talking entirely different cultures. First of all, the crowds. Traffic rules seemed to be non-existent. Whoever had the most guts, usually the one who got the right of way. We had, of course, camels, water buffalo, donkeys, people everywhere, and the smells. That's the one thing you don't get in the movies when you see movies about India, Pakistan, that part of the world. The smell. Because they use open binjo ditches, open sewers. And man, and the food, they're prepping food everywhere, outdoors, and man, it's chaos, and your senses are just like overloaded. But we got through town, got to our hotel they were staying at, which is a military hotel. And that night, that very night, India bombed the airport there in Karachi, and they started the Pakistan-Indian War. So it, of course, impacted our arrival and our stay. We spent the first few months in blackout conditions and eating a lot of times C and K rations left over from World War II. But so we stood out on the balcony the first night and watched them as they were bombing the airport, which, now that I think back on it, might not have been the best idea at the time. Who knows what could have gone awry in that situation. But after a few days, we finally got our flight up to Peshawar. Now, Peshawar is up in the northwest corner of Pakistan, very near to the Khyber Pass. So it was quite a trip. And of course, we had a military crew, even though it was civilian 727. It was a military crew, and they tried their best, but they weren't the most graceful when it came to serving meals and whatnot. So it was kind of fun to watch them try to, maneuver that. But after a little while, we finally got up to up to Peshawar. And because of battle conditions, speaking of aircraft, I might not be standing in the best place to do this. So we came in hot. They have a technique for areas of this potential ground fire. Kind of come in at altitude till you get to the airport, and they more or less dive down and then level out just before the runway. I think they land with the brakes already locked because, boy, it was rough. It was a rough landing, but effective. We got off okay there, and it was at the civilian airport, and they bussed us out to our station there at Peshawar Air Station, which was comprised of two parts: the main base, which is a regular Air Force base. We had civilian housing, believe it or not, there, and of course the swimming pool, chow hall, theater, admin, all that usual stuff. And across the street was our classified compound, where we did our work, intercepting mainly satellite telemetry off of Sino-Soviet and Russian satellites. And that's gone. The base, believe it or not, is still there. The Pakistani Air Force took it over when we left, and it's still in use. So that says a lot about the construction. We had several earthquakes. There was a couple of times they bombed the Pakistani airport there in Peshawar. And they also came out one time and took mud to our water towers. We had silver painted water towers on the station, and the Indians were using them for landmarks to you take a line on the airport when they're doing their bombing runs. But so it was exciting. Of course, we ate mostly American food, and it was very well prepared. But to be as part of that culture for that 15 months was really different. I'm going to make another video and talk about some of the specific cultural differences and some of the, should we say, action that we saw there. I hope you would find that interesting. But for now, I'm going to sign off, and I hope you get something out of this video. Tech Sergeant T saying, talk to you later.